Yeah, this job's gonna cost you at least $3,200, the mechanic said with a smirk, leaning against the greasy counter. The black man in front of him, dressed in a simple button-down shirt, froze. His jaw tightened. Something about the way the mechanic's lips curled told him this wasn't about the car. It was about him. 3,000 for what exactly? He asked, his voice calm but edged with disbelief. The mechanic chuckled. You wouldn't understand the details. Best to just pay up if you want to drive out of here. The shop grew quiet. Other mechanics looked over, pretending to be busy. A few customers waiting in the corner exchanged knowing glances. They'd seen this trick before, but what no one in that room knew was that this man wasn't just a random customer. He wasn't just another black man to be taken advantage of. He was about to change everything. His name was David Coleman, a 46-year-old entrepreneur with a quiet presence. On the surface, he looked like any other customer walking into a neighborhood garage, worn-out shoes, a modest car, a polite smile. But behind that calm demeanor lay years of struggle, grit, and triumph. Years of being underestimated, cheated, and dismissed because of the color of his skin. And in this small, oil-stained garage on the edge of town, another man, a mechanic named Rick Dawson, was about to learn a lesson he'd never forget. A lesson about respect, about justice, and about how the tables can turn in ways no one ever expects. Stick with me until the end, because the way this story unfolds is not only shocking, it's unsatisfying in a way that will leave you questioning the world we live in. David didn't grow up with privilege. His father, Thomas, was a postal worker. His mother, Gloria, worked nights as a nurse. They raised David and his two sisters in a tight-knit but struggling black neighborhood. As a kid, David was fascinated by cars. He'd sit on the curb, watching neighbors fix up old Chevys and Buicks, his eyes wide with curiosity. By age 12, he was tinkering with engines. By 16, he was running errands for the local repair shop. But life wasn't fair. While other kids got internships or summer jobs through family connections, David faced a different reality. At every step, people looked at his skin before they looked at his skills. "Sorry, kid. We're not hiring," one shop owner told him. Even as David spotted the help wanted sign still dangling in the window, still David kept pushing. He worked odd jobs, saved every dollar, and studied business in college. Slowly, he built his own path. Over the years, he rose from a single small workshop to owning an entire chain of garages across 3 states. But here's the twist. David never advertised his ownership. He kept things quiet, letting managers run day-to-day operations. To the public, he was invisible, which meant, on this day, walking into a garage he actually owned, nobody recognized him. And that's where Rick Dawson comes in. Rick was the kind of mechanic who thrived on shortcuts. Mid-40s, grizzled beard, tattoos creeping down his arms. He had a reputation for spotting who he thought could be scammed, usually women, immigrants, and black customers. He'd inflate bills, swap out good parts for old ones, and talk down to anyone who questioned him. His co-workers hated it, but no one dared speak up. Rick had been at the shop for years, and the manager turned a blind eye. That day, when David drove in with his modest 2012 Toyota Camry, Rick's eyes lit up. He smelled opportunity. And racism, mixed with greed, is a dangerous combination. David explained the issue. The car was making a rattling sound. He suspected a loose heat shield or maybe a worn belt. A minor fix, but Rick leaned into his act. He popped the hood, clicked his tongue, and sighed dramatically. "Man, you got a serious problem here. Transmission's shot, timing belt's gone, alternator's weak. You're lucky you even made it here." David raised an eyebrow. "Really? It was just rattling yesterday. No major issues." Rick smirked. "Are you trying to tell me how cars work? Listen, repairs like this don't come cheap. I'll give you a discount though, $3,200. David stared at him. A quiet silence stretched between them. He knew exactly what was happening. He'd seen this his whole life. The over-explaining, the condescending tone, the assumption that he wouldn't know better. David asked calmly, Can you show me the broken parts? Rick scoffed. Buddy, you think I got time to give you a classroom lesson? Look, either pay or tow it out. But I wouldn't recommend driving it. Dangerous stuff. Other customers shifted uncomfortably. A woman whispered to her husband, "He's doing it again." Rick caught the whisper and barked, "You mind your business." David took a slow breath. He could have exploded. He could have called Rick out right there. But instead, he simply nodded. "All right," David said softly. "Go ahead and write it up." Rick grinned, thinking he'd won. He swaggered back to his desk, tapping on the computer. His coworkers avoided eye contact. But what no one realized was that David had already pulled out his phone. He wasn't calling a friend. He wasn't calling a lawyer. He was calling the regional office, the very office that reported directly to him. And that's when the tables began to turn. Within 20 minutes, a black SUV pulled up outside the shop. Out stepped Angela Morales, the regional director of the garage chain. A Latina woman in a sharp blazer. She commanded respect the second she walked in. Rick's jaw dropped. What's going on?" Angela looked around, her eyes cold. "Mr. Coleman, I came as soon as you called. What seems to be the problem?" Every mechanic froze. Customers leaned in, sensing drama. David finally spoke, his voice steady but cutting. "Rick here says my car needs $3,200 worth of repairs. I'd like a second opinion." Angela's face darkened. She turned to Rick. "You quoted him what?" Rick stammered. I mean, yeah, it's serious damage, real bad." Angela cut him off. "Open the hood. Now." The shop fell silent as she inspected the car. Within minutes, she looked up, fury in her eyes. "There's nothing wrong here except a loose heat shield. 15-minute job. $50 fix." Gasps echoed around the room. A customer muttered, "I knew it." Rick went pale. He glanced at David, who simply stood there, calm, watching. And then came the reveal. Angela straightened her blazer. "Rick, allow me to reintroduce you. This is David Coleman. He's not just a customer. He's the owner of this entire chain. Every garage, every bay, including this one." The room erupted in whispers. Rick's mouth opened, but no words came out. David finally stepped forward, his voice low but firm. "I built this company so people could trust us. And you've been stealing, lying, and targeting people who look like me. That ends today." Rick panicked. He tried to defend himself. "Look, man, I didn't mean anything by it. I was just trying to." David cut him off. "Save it." Angela turned to the staff. "You've all seen this behavior before, haven't you?" Mechanics exchanged nervous glances. Finally, one young apprentice spoke up. "Yeah, he does this all the time, especially with women and black customers." The truth poured out. Stories of scams, overcharges, intimidation. Years of abuse hidden under grease and noise. David listened, his face unreadable. Finally, he said, "Rick, you're done. Get out." Rick's face crumpled. "You can't just fire me. I've been here 15 years. David's eyes narrowed. "Exactly. 15 years of dishonor. Pack your tools." The shop erupted in relief. Customers cheered. Mechanics sighed, some even clapping. For the first time in years, they felt free. Rick stormed out, cursing under his breath. And for a moment, it felt like justice had finally been served. But here's where the story twists again. David could have pressed charges. He could have made an example out of Rick. But instead, he chose silence. The next day, Rick found work at a smaller, independent garage across town. No consequences, no restitution. Customers who didn't know better still walked in, still fell for his scams. And no one in that new shop had the power to stop him. David's employees asked him, "Why let him walk away so easily?" David only sighed. "Because the fight is bigger than one man. You cut one weed, another grows back. The system, that's what has to change." And that's where the story leaves us. Justice served, but not fully. Relief, but not satisfaction. So what's the lesson here? Sometimes, even when you hold the power, the victory doesn't feel sweet. Because racism, greed, and exploitation don't disappear with one firing. They hide, they shift, they wait for the next chance. David knew this. That's why he kept building, kept pushing, kept fighting to change the industry from the inside out. And maybe that's the takeaway for all of us. We can't always control the villains in our stories, but we can control how we respond, how we rise, and how we keep moving forward. If you were in David's shoes, would you have let Rick walk away? Or would you have pushed for more? Let me know in the comments. And if this story struck a chord with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because there are more stories like this that the world needs to hear. Until next time, stay aware, stay strong, and remember, sometimes the tables turn, but not always the way we expect.